I am a 55-year-old broadcast engineer who has worked in this industry for almost 33 years. I have worked almost 20 years now for a TV station on the East Coast, but started in my home state of Utah. I met my wife, Natalie, while working in Utah. Natalie was basically a gopher and did some makeup for people before they went on live TV. If one of the TV anchors needed a Coke, she would go get it for them. Sometimes she would go pick up their dry cleaning, etc. Natalie, to me, was a diamond in the rough, and I fell in love with her. At the time, I was in my late 20s, and Natalie was about 21. She started at the station as an unpaid intern. By the time I got to know her, she was on the payroll and doing okay. I later learned Natalie was a mom to a cute 2-year-old boy. I did not care because I loved Natalie. I knew she and the boy was a package, and I was okay with that. So one day while walking, I asked Natalie to marry me, and she said yes. We got married about 2 weeks later. Everything was okay for almost 2 years, until I started to notice Natalie always seemed distant. We could be having a meal, I could be talking about my day, and when I asked Natalie her opinion, she would say, "What?" Over time, I could see Natalie had tuned out. She was still going through the motions of being a wife, but was not present. She stayed a great mom, though. Natalie was still working at the TV station. Then one day, I was offered a better position at another station in our market for a lot more money, and I accepted the offer. Natalie stayed at the station. One day, I was not feeling well and went home to go to bed. I guess I got home about 2 p.m. and was in bed asleep by 3 p.m. When the phone rang, I woke up and answered it to hear a female's voice telling me to keep my wife away from her husband or she will hurt her. Then she hung up. Most days, Natalie got home about 4 p.m. That day, she was late and did not come home until about 8 p.m. I got called by the daycare and drove over there and got my stepson. He was playing with a toy truck, and I was sitting on the couch wondering what the hell was going on. I'm not a hothead. I generally can think under pressure. I think this skill comes from my job. So I simply asked Natalie what's going on. Natalie looked at me and said, "I had to work late, Sal. I'm sorry it has disrupted your day." I let it go. Natalie was still distant. Over time, the bedroom also died. I'm a Latter-day Saint. I was raised in the church. Natalie was not. One of the things I was hoping after we got married was for her to convert. So I made a call and asked to speak to one of the church elders. During that meeting, I took the time to go over everything happening in my marriage. The elder quoted some scripture and we prayed. Still, over time, Natalie was getting more distant until I finally had enough. That elder, of whom I have the deepest respect, told me to do a self-assessment. I did so. I even spoke to another close friend who attends my church. I asked him to be honest and to be critical. He said, "Sal, your only flaw is you are too trusting." I guess that's when my eyes were opened. I still loved Natalie. To be 100% honest, I still do. I loved their son as well. When I think back to those days, I can't help but feel the depression all over again. I did not want to get out of bed most days. For religious reasons, I never consumed alcohol. Most of the time, I either drank water or fruit juice. I finally went to see my family physician. He prescribed some meds to help me. He did say this was only a temporary solution. Natalie was still drifting away. When I tried to speak to her, I got a "nothing is wrong" reply. So I decided to hire someone to follow her. People need to understand, almost all TV and radio stations, except for the lobby, are off limits to the general public. That TV station was no exception. All the private investigator could do was keep an eye out for her car. It took several months, but he finally called me at work and told me we needed to talk. He had taken some video of her walking with another man. Oh, I knew who that man was the minute I first saw him. He was my stepson's biological father and Natalie's first boyfriend. There was also video of them walking into a cheap hotel. Folks, of all the 50 states to commit adultery, don't do it in Utah. I made an appointment with a very good attorney who filed for a divorce within days of reviewing the videos. The day before I knew Natalie was going to be served, I made plans to not work that day and was going to spend that morning clearing out of our home. The house belonged to Natalie before we got married, and to be honest, I wanted nothing to do with it ever again. I got several friends and we went to work packing. I put all my things in a spare room of a very good friend I have known since we were in school. Natalie was served according to the process server about 11:30 a.m. that morning. By that time, I was out of the house and to this day have never been back inside it. To put my mental state in better focus, in the span of about 2 weeks, I seen videos of Natalie cheating on me. I had filed for divorce from a woman I love with every fiber of my being. I also was told my father had pancreatic cancer and most likely would not see that upcoming Christmas. So, the day I moved out, I drove to Strawberry Reservoir and stayed with some friends that lived nearby. Several days later, I returned to work to find about a dozen post-it notes to call your wife. I don't know, maybe Natalie had a spy in the building, but not long after I got to work, Natalie popped into the lobby wanting to talk. I would be telling a lie if I said talking to Natalie face to face had me scared to death, so I did what my attorney advised. Give her his card and told her to speak to him. That is what I did. It took Natalie about 2 weeks to learn where I was staying. I guess she finally had me followed. I called my attorney and we were able to get a court order. My attorney advised Natalie to get an attorney because there will be no meetings where I was present if she did not come with one. So the day came for our hearing. Natalie did hire an attorney and he did okay, I guess. However, all the available evidence favored me. Natalie kept the house. Natalie failed to get support from me. I was told supporting the stepson was my option. I later learned her AP's wife also filed for a divorce after getting the videos I had. Later, she offered to go 50-50 on the cost of the private investigator. I took her up on the offer when she said she would use part of her settlement to pay it. Natalie walked out of the courthouse crying. It was at my father's funeral I next saw her. I did not know it, but she had slipped in the back of the church. As we were leaving, I noticed her. I could see it in her eyes. She was wanting to talk. My aunt also seen her that day. This is my father's big sister, and she is not somebody to be trifled with. That day was no exception. Natalie was not running, but my aunt was about 15 feet behind her as she walked fast to her car. The last time I saw Natalie in Utah was in the lobby of my station. She was leaving Utah and going to accept a job offer at a TV station in Iowa. She said, "Sal, I am very sorry for what I did. You did not deserve what I did to you." I stood there quiet as she spoke. Then she said, "Sal, if there's any chance of us getting back together, you know I will never do that again and will stay in Utah." My last words to her were, "Natalie, go to Iowa. You have nothing here." I then walked back to my office. Then a while later, I was offered my current job. I am making a lot of money and living the dream. I am seeing a lovely lady today. Last year, through a mutual friend, I learned that my stepson was in a juvenile facility in Iowa. I made some calls and decided to do something about that. I was on a flight from Washington, D.C. to Iowa soon after. I hired an attorney there, and we started to work on getting him with me. When Natalie learned of my actions, she almost physically attacked me in the courthouse. This Natalie was a different Natalie. I failed to get the boy. As far as I know, he is still in that facility. Natalie did look 40 years older though. I told one of the people that was supervising the boy to let him know my address and phone number. I will be a safe harbor for him. My lady and all my close friends in Utah, as well as her, think I am crazy. Maybe I am, but I developed a paternal love for that guy. It is still a few years yet before he turns 18. We will see what happens. All I know is Natalie is not being a proper mother. In my opinion, for another man to use his resources to look after another human that he didn't father after the relationship with their mother has come to an end says a lot about him. I have much respect for him. A lot of us wouldn't do it. Until next time.